Hey Rob,
Hey, Leeroy. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. I'm all right. I feel like an asshat. For some reason, I screwed up the time and thought we were in 30 minutes.
Oh, I've sent you with a message. It's an error there. It's all right. Don't worry about it.
I'm so
How are
sorry.
you? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm having a good day. Yeah,
Good.
yeah, been a busy day, but like feel focused, feel good about where things are going in the business and enjoying the ride.
Good. It's a good way to do it. Enjoy the ride indeed, because it is a ride. These so for anyone that doesn't know who you are, because obviously this is going out on LinkedIn, but it also be going out on other platforms. So introduce yourself and what it is you do.
All right. I am Rob Gilbear. I'm the founder of a company called The Growth Habit. I'm a business mentor and coach. I help people grow their business and grow their impact. And the ways that I help people do that, things I focus on is helping people dial in really clear magnetic messaging, getting really clear on who the hell they're meant to serve, what are they offering those people, creating offers that truly are irresistible for those folks, and then leveraging all the awesome modern tools that exist to be able to get in front of those people and enroll clients. And really, my people are doing it from the heart. They care deeply about the people they serve. They're damn good at it, and they don't want to do anything that feels icky or gross to try and get clients. They don't want to do any kind of hard sales or slimy stuff.
Yeah, you use that word icky quite a bit. Where's that come from?
Um, I don't know where it came from originally. Just it's a bit of a childhood word, but as far as something that feels kind of sticky, kind of gross, kind of a little off-putting,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's a more of a conversational tone word that seems to state that in a clear way. And yeah, it is a word that I'm fond of. You definitely would see it
Yeah.
frequently.
Yeah, no, it's descriptive. It works very well. And would you say you've seen quite a few entrepreneurs, whatever you want to call them, in your words, icky, and that's kind of made it stick a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. Well, look, if you're growing a business in this day and age and have a profile on any platform, we get those messages where someone shows up and they don't know anything about you. It's copy and paste. It's first message, someone's telling you to book a call, download a thing, sign up for their whatever. And it just feels like a take approach. And the
Yeah,
comparison I make all the time is with enrollment and sales is it's dating. So it's like the idea of walking into a bar and walking up to someone saying, hey, let's make out. Hey, do you want to come home with me? You do it 1,000 times, someone might say yes, but you're going to get slapped a whole lot of times as well. So I think, yeah, there's no shortage of experiencing that if you're building a business and if you're online currently. There's plenty of people that show you what that ickiness is like.
yeah. Right. Before we dive in, then talk about. Tell me through the last 12 months. Busy 12 months. You got engaged, as you put it. Business is doing great. How's it been the last 12 months?
It's been really good. And some of that is just like a little bit out of 12 months, like maybe like 16 months ago or so. It's a little bit out of,
Right.
but it's been a wild last year and a half. Very grateful. If we round the clock back 5 years ago, I was working as an employee. I had a well-paying job. Kids were healthy. Life was good, but I felt kind of miserable and stuck. I felt like I was pursuing other people's dreams and helping
Yeah.
people build their dreams and not build my own. And if we go back another, say, if we go back, how many years we got to go back for? Like 8, 9, 10 years from there, like I was carrying debt. I was drinking. I didn't like the person I saw in the mirror. I was really miserable. So it's the last year and a half has been really some fruits and rewards of a decade of work, a
Yeah.
decade of change, deciding not to drink. And yeah, like you said, those things like this is my kitchen. One of the things on my dream list for our house, like there was like, we need this many bedrooms. We want to live in these neighborhoods, like those things that you itemize when you're looking for a home. But I had some things on the dream list. One of them was that I didn't have to cut any lawn, that any property you have, I don't want to be mowing a lawn. The other one was having a fireplace, and the other one was having a brick wall inside. They were
Yeah.
dream list things, like don't need them. And we've got like a terrace in the back, and the front yard is like wood chips, so I don't mow any lawn. We have a fireplace. and we have a real brick wall in the kitchen. So that's fantastic. And yeah, it's now officially 15 different countries that I've had clients in, and the business is going well, and it's been fantastic. It's been really great.
Yeah. So the transition then, because to going in the corporate world, you obviously got a lot out of it in that instance, because like you say, that was a transition period of, say, you giving up drinking and so forth, and you want to call it going straight laced or whatever you want to call it, but that period obviously meant a lot to you, and it fulfilled one little area but lacking in a whole lot of areas. So what was the transition from going to that, because it's a big decision, say, giving all that up and then following your own dreams, I guess, and going your own way.
Going your own way. It's funny because I didn't go to college or university. I didn't pursue a traditional path. I had my first business as a teenager. So I've been an entrepreneur on and off in some shape or form for a few decades. And a very wise interviewing senior manager asked me when I was still in this corporate world was, how long until you quit this to go build your own thing again? So I think that was always there in the background, but it wouldn't have been possible if I was not taking care of myself, of my mental health, if I was still drinking as a way to escape and get away from the parts of the world that I struggled to process. So I needed to go through that stuff first. And then I'd won, right? Like I was a director, I was on a leadership team, I had a good salary, I was checking all of these boxes, but something was still missing. So it's interesting. I needed to build the courage and belief that I could do it. And mentors, I sought out other mentors and other people who were further ahead, who had more experience, who'd done the kind of things that I wanted to do, to help me see what was possible, to help me see what I could do that maybe I didn't fully believe was possible for me, and see the capabilities in myself. Because I was in my 40s. I was definitely at it's too late. It's done. I was an entrepreneur when I was younger, but now, I had written that belief off as far as being able to do it again.
Yeah. How long was that transition? Been thinking about it for a while.
Oh, I think it was a couple years. It really was a couple years. In 2018, I wasn't happy in my job, and the solution that I arrived at, because I was too afraid to make a leap again, was that I'm going to go find another job. And there's all these people in my inbox and recruiters hitting me up being like, hey, you're a director. Do you want to try this VP role? Hey, you're making this much money. What if you got that much money? And I started to entertain those inbound messages, and I went on some interviews, and I was second interview, two very successful co-founders of a growing tech company on the other side of the table. We're near the end of the interview. It's gone well, and they're putting away their books, and we're folding up, we're kind of leaving. And one of them said, so 5 years from now, where do you want to be? And the word coach fell out of my mouth. And It surprised me as much as it surprised them. And that was a turning point. And I knew, so I started to look into it, and I started to seek out some mentors, and I started reading some books, but I still didn't have the balls to do it. And instead I went back to what's familiar. It makes me think, there's a quote, history before mystery. And I went back to what was familiar, which was music. So I actually started making a bit of music. I started playing some shows again. I played a big festival in British Columbia. I played at Burning Man again, and I started exploring all of that. And it was at Burning Man, I was like, I'm just avoiding what I really want to be doing. So I came back from that. I canceled for future releases. I canceled all gigs, and I truly, in the sense that people talk about, went all in. And from then, that was September. 3 months later, I had given my resignation and was moving on. But it was a 2 year. The whole thing was at least a couple of years of second guessing myself and dabbling and.
Yeah, it's kind of what you want to do, but it's always at the back of your mind, and things kind of put you off. It's, like you say, there you went in the DJing side and so forth before you even, kind of ventured that. It's like we do ourselves damage before we want to enter into it again.
Yeah, it's like going back to an ex-partner that we know the relationship wasn't good, or going back to an old job. It's It's unfortunately part of the process for many of us, and sometimes I think some people are able to avoid it, but I was not able to avoid it on this round.
Yeah. So tell us about what it is you're doing now, because you're serving a lot. Is it you actually clients?
So it depends on the way that I work with people. There's a couple different ways that I work with people. I work with 5 people one-on-one at any given time. It's capped at 5. I'm full right now, and I have no bandwidth there for, I think, a couple months is when the next spot opens up. And with people working with one-on-one, it's very much like a partnership in the business with them. I am co-creating with them. I'm helping them create clarity on, again, those things I was saying earlier, their messaging, their offer, the stuff that they're putting out in the world. But I'm writing stuff with them. I'm editing stuff with them. I'm in documents with them as we do all this. I'm helping them get clarity on what the hell they want to do and creating a plan towards it. Because a lot of the challenges is you could do so many things. You could try and focus on LinkedIn. You could build a YouTube channel, or maybe a book. Well, you've been thinking about speaking. Well, actually, someone who's grown a big following on TikTok. But wait a minute, podcast. What should I be doing? A podcast? Do I need a group program? Well, what about a digital course? And I've used most of my fingers, and we keep going. So that's definitely part of the work I do with people, is help people figure out which are those best next steps for them and getting them focused on a plan and taking actions towards it. So it's custom. When I work with someone on one, it really is custom. Then the main way I work with people is what I call my Impact Accelerator. It's a hybrid program, meaning that there is one-on-one access to me, one-on-one sessions, but also it's mostly group support, group delivery, group growth. So I have all my frameworks and lessons and all that crap on a platform. We do a kickoff strategy call together, and then there's other checkpoints with me, but there's multiple times a week that these people can jump into a group call to get feedback. We have a messaging call where we work through and help them edit content, edit landing pages, the products that they're outlining. That's the main way, and timely, because I'm leaning into it right now. I've also built a community. I wasn't intending to build a community. All the people I've been lucky enough to work with, a bunch of my previous clients, I have them all in a Slack group. We have, monthly calls and stuff right now, and it's been informal a bit. But starting in March, I'm launching a formal, an actual membership community where there's going to be structured weekly calls, where there is going to be content associated with, where there's going to be an intentional fostering of the community more. So that's going to be the most affordable way to get my help and my support soon.
No, the community side definitely works, and I found as well, it's a lot more. People have done it from a natural progression rather than thinking, I need to do this, and then they've got that. Like you say, they've helped clients in the past, and that community side's already begun to take notion a little bit, really.
Yeah, it's easier. That's a great thing because. Sorry.
No, go on.
It's easier to just build on something you have. And I love that you pointed that out. The difference if you've got a bit of a community already and you're just building on it versus trying to create from scratch, I should do this. And that applies to everything else. I was joking earlier about all those different things you could focus on. Some people, writing comes very naturally for them. So if writing comes naturally for you, then you probably should think, okay, LinkedIn's probably a good place, probably Twitter or X or whatever, and newsletter. Okay, but what if writing's really shit for you, but you're great on the spot, you're great at asking questions and like you being a great interviewer? Okay, so then you can do a podcast, you can maybe focus on YouTube, so just knowing what's already there within you and the things you have and building on them instead of trying to force stuff is a really great strategy in most areas of life and business.
Yeah. How do you manage other people then? Because obviously those clients that you're working with, like you say, some of them are good writers, some of them might be good on video, stuff like that. How do you kind of push that guidance process to make sure that A, you're getting the best out of them, and B, you're kind of making sure that they're choosing the best? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's one of the first exercises I do with a lot of people is kind of doing an audit of those things, of what comes naturally for them, what do they enjoy, what feels like flow, so we can put a big spotlight on them and get them on that path. And then as far as keeping them to it, it depends on, what kind of client. With my one-on-one clients, they have access to me on a chat app and over email in between sessions. And some people want more hands-on. Some people just they show up to their sessions every other week. They get a plan for what to do and they go and execute it. And for the people that are in the group program, one of the things is there's another coach in the program with me that works with me, and she does an accountability call every week where people show up. It's like, hey, last week I was supposed to do this week I'm going to do that. And she's an expert at helping people with habits and focus and structure. And so she helps people kind of get out of their own way and do the things they're meant to be doing.
Yeah. That accountability side's key in a lot of areas, not just for people that work in small teams or on their own, even for big C-suite. They I think it'll lack that accountability. Especially like when you're doing online stuff, you're kind of secluded in your own environment, I guess, aren't you? So I can imagine that account a huge part of the community.
Yeah, it's a big part. And you're touching on something else too, which is it's awesome the tools we have available. It's awesome how easy it is for you to share a message, for you to come up with a way to help others, for you to start getting clients, and even clients in different countries. Like the availability we all have now is so different than when I was running my first business as a teenager. Like it almost seems like cheating to me. And it can be lonely. And you can end up spending all day on this box, talking through screens to people, not leaving the house, not interacting with people. And especially then with being an entrepreneur, maybe if you're lucky, you have a friend who's doing it, but most people don't have family members, or the people they grew up with aren't doing it. So it's hard to talk about what you're facing, and having other people, not just to hold you accountable, but to help you just understand, to relate to, with this wild journey that it is to be an entrepreneur and to be trying to build the business. So the community and having the support and understanding of others, it really is invaluable.
How do you keep that community engaged then? Because obviously a lot of people come to these things shut off or don't really want to be open and express themselves in an open environment sometimes. So how do you encourage that involved and everyone's getting the most out of it?
There's a couple parts. One, I think, is being intentional about who you let into the community. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier, real clarity about who you're meant to serve. I think sometimes people think like, oh, it looks like I could maybe make some money doing this, so they start doing that. Or it's like, I've done this kind of work before, so I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm going to do what I used to do as an employee and just do that, as an entrepreneur. And without stopping to think, like, who the hell do you actually want to work with? Who are the people that you actually feel connection to? What are the traits, the values, what makes you aligned to those people? So all that to say that really intentional about who I work with, and I have no fear, and I'll decline people. If I don't feel it's right, if I feel it's off, I'll say I'm not the coach for you. And that brings in a certain kind of person. And then for me, that's the sharing piece is not a hard one, because at the start of the conversation you were talking about my last year and a half, and I talked a bit about what I've been through, because I share openly that I've struggled with mental health, that I've struggled with alcohol, that I've been in debt. I've documented all these stories in my best-selling book. I include this as part of the messaging that I put online, so that I tend to attract people who are on the other side of some difficult things and feel comfortable to some extent to talk about them. And then you as the leader, you go first, like you set the tone, like a good facilitator for a session creates the environment where people feel comfortable. So being clear on who you are inviting in, and then setting the example, those things make a big difference.
When you started making content then, what was your journey like on there? Because people come to, they kind of put on a false persona and they try to be professional, which to some degree you should be doing, but how do you, there comes a point when you start being yourself. What was your initial journey like back then, and how has it progressed?
There's so many parts about this I love. So I'll say this instead, which I'd call it the fact that I'm in a hoodie and t-shirt most of the time. Before I came to the call, I was trying to remember what you're wearing in your profile picture. I'm like, oh, is this gonna be off? Like, is Leeroy gonna be all smart dressed? I'm in a hoodie, and I showed up and you're wearing a hoodie. In my mind, I went, fuck yes. Like, I was happy. That made me very happy. So I wanted to just acknowledge that. And I think the word professional, I've posted about this. I think it deserves to be challenged, and I think it's unfortunate that a lot of us have been raised in an environment that thinks that professional means that you have to look a certain way or not talk about certain things or pretend that you are not a human being outside of the work that you do, that you don't also maybe have challenges in your relationship, or maybe have a health thing you're facing, or maybe had a shitty relationship with your parents, or just maybe your cat's sick. Like, who knows? Like, we are human beings, full stop. And that don't show your humanity side of business, I think, was really big before, and I think it's changing, and I'm glad that it's changing. So, and one of the things that gets said to me most frequently is some version of, you really seem to be showing up as yourself. When I met you on the call, you were as you seemed online. It's refreshing. You seem to just be expressing yourself and not giving a shit too much. And that's intentional because, as you mentioned, the trap of people feeling they need to create an avatar. And it was, I think, a little easier for me for a couple of reasons. One is through content with previous businesses, I've got clients on MySpace, on Facebook, on Instagram. So I played with content and done stuff before. And if I think back when I was doing the music stuff full time and I was a touring DJ and owning a record label and producing, there was a persona there. There was an avatar because I really didn't like who I actually was. And I got blackout drunk all the time. And there was a little bit of me showing who I was, but it was a lot of crap. So, and then between that old version of me and the version that's showing up in me on LinkedIn, I've done therapy, I've done a lot of coaching, I've done a lot of journaling, I've done all sorts of things to reevaluate what this is, who I am, what I love about myself, that I actually like the person I see in the mirror. I look in the mirror and I'm like, I like this dude. This, like, I keep my word. I make a promise. I keep my promises, not just to others, but to myself. I like who I am, even though my hair isn't quite like it used to be. And when I started showing up on LinkedIn, I think the second post I made in 2019 was me at Burning Man in a dress with makeup on, talking about life and how we can be whoever the hell we want to be. And I know, compared to the version of LinkedIn that existed then, which was a lot more button up than it is now, there's definitely some people are like, whoa, what's this? So, long-winded way to just confirm what you said. Like, trying to make some fake avatar is not a good approach. The closer you can get to aligning who you are in your private life, what it is that your family loves about you, what do your clients say they love about you, what interests you. You don't have to be like me and share your deepest, darkest secrets. But if you love to draw, show your drawing. If you really love dogs and don't care for cats, talk about it. You don't mask and hide who you are. And then it's easier to do. It's easier to show up. It doesn't feel as heavy. You don't feel like you're lifting a weight of trying to uphold a fake character.
Yeah. Do you think anyone can put out content then, or do you think they have to go internally to kind of, how can you put it, get over themselves, I think, and just become a bit self-aware or comfortable?
I think anyone could put out content, and I think the journey to becoming self-aware and more comfortable with yourself, for some people, is through content. For some people, they would be better to have gone through a bunch of things that I listed first. And for some people, and I've had them as clients, they start to share and publish online, and then they're like, ooh, that feels uncomfortable. And then we're like, oh, cool, let's get curious. Why does that scare you? Why is that something? And then the showing up and sharing of content is what leads to that self-awareness.
I think it's definitely, you definitely become more self-aware of what you're putting out, especially when you, because like I said before, every or corporate way of doing things, and then they do become more self-aware and of what they do. And it's a good process, to get up, just to utilize it, what it's there for, rather than just what a lot of companies do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So talk us about some actionable. Go on. Sorry.
Just to Sorry, there seems to be like a micro lag, just enough that we were talking to each other a little bit. I thank you. You made me laugh, and then you had a really hearty laugh too. And laughter is such a great gift. And I think I'm just laughing at it because for two reasons. One, a lot of companies are trying to do content like they used to do commercials, which is very broadcast and just put it out.
Yeah.
And it's very disconnected from the other people out there. And it's almost insulting. So it's like if you've only worked as an employee and haven't been an entrepreneur, and then it's showing up and sharing who you are. Well, how much do I want to share? What does that look like? That all those fears we just kind of talked about. But then also if you look at the kind of messaging that those people put out, it's cold. It's vanilla. It's ignorable. Yeah. It's just, oh, it's so lame. And then the other thing that came to mind is I was chatting about it with people in my program in a group call right before we hopped on this conversation together. And I love to ask people if they can name their great grandparents. So I'll put you on the spot right now. I'm curious to see if you can name your great grandparents. And then there's a reason why that I'll get to. But Leeroy, if I ask you the names of your great grandparents, can you name them?
I know the surname's Cuff, the initial name.
Okay. So I've asked this question now it's probably closing into 50 people. Most of the time, most people say, I don't know. 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 say something like, I think one of them was named Rose. I think one. And the other ones, they have no idea. They're just clueless. And the point of that for me is in 2 generations, no one's going to remember you. No one's going to remember me. So it doesn't matter. So all this time and this belly aching and this stress and this anxiety that we get into and wrap ourselves into, what's like, is this right? What's my legacy? What if someone, it doesn't matter. It really does not matter. And it's a little nihilist maybe, but that exercise allows me to not overthink things, to not get into anxiety, because then I can focus on, okay, what am I grateful for today? I'm grateful for that when I fucked up the times and I showed up 2 minutes late to the podcast with Leeroy, that he was very kind and gracious about it instead of being angry. I'm grateful for that today it's a little bit sunny and it's actually been gloomy for a week. That's great. And I can be present to the present day. I can have an idea and just share it, because if I post something on LinkedIn and people don't like it, it don't matter. It really doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter at all. I think the initial nihilism a little bit is quite useful, and it's funny. I think if you consume the content over, it does cause a hell of a lot of problems from. But if you're putting out content, it does the reverse, and it actually helps you overcome a lot of barriers. It's there to create. You do have to consume a little bit from time to time, because but it's not getting lost in overconsumption, I guess.
You're bringing up a really good point, the overconsumption. Yeah, they'll hear people talk about it, that you need to create more than you consume. And I don't know the first person I heard say that, so I don't know who to properly attribute it to, but I have experienced it to be true in my life. I've seen it to be true with clients. And it's funny because it's almost at odds with another old saying, which I also believe to be true, which is if you need clarity, write. If you want inspiration, read. That works as long as we're not talking about social media. If we're talking about reading a book, reading fiction, reading a story, reading a biography, and if you need inspiration, then like reading can be good. But if you need clarity, some form of journaling. And if I don't know, you or anyone listening to this, you're like, I can't journal, I tried it, it's shit. Okay, record yourself voice notes. The idea is just get the stuff that's in your head out somewhere. And I know it's true. It works really well, except for asterisks, not with content. If you can't scroll hole your way to inspiration. It's just going to be to comparison, to feeling off, to being in your head, to being upset, to judging yourself. Yeah, it's not a good place.
How do you structure your day then? Because obviously you're doing quite a lot. How do you structure it?
I get up. I get up. I get out of bed. The first thing I do is I come down to this room. I open the blinds to get some light in. I'm half awake, literally one eye open, and I make myself a glass of hot salt water. And salt is it's funny. It almost seems counterintuitive, but it's one of the great ways to hydrate yourself. And the things like Gatorade and Powerade and those sweet flavored drinks that are sold to us as hydration drinks, the salt in there, the sodium is what allows you to absorb the liquid better. So I actually make myself hot salt water, and then I open my laptop and I go to Evernote and I write. And I go write whatever, just like whatever's top of mind. Sometimes it's an idea for a newsletter. Sometimes it's things I'm grateful for. Sometimes it's things that are on my mind that I feel that I need to get out of there so it gets done. So I get some writing, get that out of the way. And then most of my posts are scheduled now. I'm in a really great routine for the last 7 or 8 weeks, which is new for me, that most of my posts are scheduled to go live at either 7:30 or 8 a.m. And then I'll go be active on the platform. I'll go support other people's stuff. I'll go comment with what's going on. And I'll go be very present with social media for a half hour or 45 minutes. And then I'll turn it off. And, you know, when I went and and saw your message from you, like I hadn't been on LinkedIn for the last several hours. I was on calls with clients and doing other things. And then having an intentional separation from it. I use... what's it called? Freedom, I think. I use, an app called Freedom on my laptop, which allows you to select all the sites that are distracting and unhelpful. So for me, it's Reddit, it's YouTube, it's LinkedIn, and I have all those things, and it's blocked. My cell phone goes in a closet on a different floor than where we sleep. It goes in there around 7:30 or 8 p.m. every night. So the last couple hours of my day, I'm nowhere near my phone. And on weekends, I only did 18 hours this last weekend, but normally on weekends, I try and do a 24-hour unplug where there is no LinkedIn, no Instagram, no random internet, where it is, you know, being present with family, being outside, reading, writing, or like I'll watch a movie. That'll be the closest thing to consumption.
Yeah. Yeah. How have you found that transition? Because obviously you're like me in some sense, you know, you come from quite a heavy use, I guess, in the best way of putting it. You know, so you're very conscious of getting rid of those vices bit by bit. How have you found that journey?
It's been good, and I think having faced other vices before makes this easier, because I'm like, well, I've done this with other things. Like I can figure this one out. And when I say we, my partner and I, Melissa, my fiance, because you mentioned earlier we got engaged, which is another part that I'm really grateful for. We discovered it kind of by accident. We were in Cuba several years ago on vacation, and instead of going to an all-inclusive, we stayed at Airbnbs. And then we got to explore the places we were visiting more. We were in Havana, and we went to outside of the tourist areas and saw the rundown areas and experienced the country. And Wi-Fi was hard to get. And we were several days on end with no data, cell phones don't work, no Wi-Fi. And then even on the last night we were there of our trip, we did stay at a nice resort. We're last day, we'll do all this other stuff. On the last day, we'll stay somewhere nice with a nice pool and the buffet or whatever. They didn't have Wi-Fi there. You could buy Wi-Fi access, and it was $15 US for 10 minutes or something crazy. Like it just... So we went almost the entire week, I think, without being online at all. And then we got there and we bought a couple of those 10-minute things to catch up or whatever. And I was like, ugh. And that week, it just made me realize how much noise scrolling all the time brings in, how much distraction, how much anxiety. And I put out, actually, when I was in that phase, when I was not yet willing to jump into running my own business again, and I did music, I put out a song called Conversations in Cuba. And it's based on that week there together, because the entire week was in deep, open, vulnerable, heart-to-heart, no bullshit, human-to-human, loving conversations, because we didn't have our phones to distract us.
Yeah. Would you say that progression... Well, I'll rephrase it. Would you say you're a different... Would you say that progression's essential in all of us?
Yes, fully and completely. I look at pictures of me from 10 years ago, and I share them sometimes, and people will comment, you look like a different person. I definitely am a different person from those reasons I said earlier. Like I feel differently. I sleep differently. My body looks different. I used to avoid looking at myself because I really didn't like the person I was before. I was a piece of shit. I really did not like who I was. And now I feel open and free. Like people talk about freedom and starting a business for freedom and financial freedom or freedom over your calendar, not having someone tell you what to do. And those are all great. But the realest freedom is with ourselves and liking who we are and believing in ourselves. So I've unlocked that to a really great degree. And the progression piece, I don't know, what's that cheesy quote? If you're not green, if you're green, you're growing. And if you're not, you're dying. Like, I think we are meant to evolve. I think all our cells are trying to replicate, and we're trying to procreate. Like there's just these biological things that are running through us, and it doesn't need to be. I hesitate because sometimes it feels like hustle culture stuff. Like you got to be scaling. Aren't you scaling? Why aren't you doing 100,000 months yet? Like, what do you mean you haven't made your first 10 million yet, or whatever? All these things, but I do think continuing to expand. I do think continuing to learn, continuing to be curious, continuing in that way. We all have that within us, and we all desire it in some way.
Yeah, I think we definitely all desire moving towards something. Whether it's a financial thing, but a personal thing. I think everyone needs something to push you forward. And they can give very or what that is. But why do you think a lot of people? Anyone can say anything. Everyone's got goals. Everyone's got what their better life would be, but not everyone follows up on that. Why would you think that is?
This is great. Have you read the book Atomic Habits?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people have, because the book is blowing up, and it's going to be one of those books that people are talking about in not in just 10 years, but in 50 years, people will be talking about that book. And one of the things at the beginning of that book is James Clear talks about both the winners and the losers, people who achieve goals and don't achieve goals. Both of them have goals. So it's not the having the goals that is the differentiator, that it is what are you taking action on, and what are you taking action on a regular basis that compounds. And people fall for this overnight success thing, and they think like, oh, Leeroy's done this and that, but like, well, hold on. Like, what was Leeroy doing 12 months ago? What was he doing 5 years ago? What kind of shit was he eating 10 years ago? And if you pull down the layers and look behind the curtain, there's way more to the story than to anyone's overnight success. And then the last thing that I think is the first chapter in the book, because he explains this so great, is that people's identity gets in the way. And people with goals and who achieve them or not, it's identity. And if health is the easiest one to go to because it's very relatable, like I want to be healthier, I want to weigh less, or I want to have a 6-pack or whatever. But what happens, and I saw it at my kickboxing gym in January, it was packed. In January, every fucking class, you couldn't move in there. There was days I wanted to go and I couldn't go. Third week into the month, like January 22nd, no problem. Back to normal. Because the people who all force themselves to go for a few weeks aren't there anymore. And the difference between those people is you can get motivated for a second. You say, oh, I want to change. I'm going to do something, and you'll do it. But if internally your identity is I'm unhealthy, I've always been underweight, I've never had a 6-pack, or whatever that version of that is, where the place where you don't break out of it, on the day where you are tired, on the day where you do get a flat tire, on the day where you get in a fight with a friend, and a day where you forget to eat a meal and something throws you off, subconsciously you're like, well, I won't go. And you maybe don't say to yourself, I've always been a fat piece of shit, but like subconsciously that's what's going on. It's like, well, I've never been that person. And for me, I was always a weakling. I was scrawny. I was never strong. I couldn't push and I had this version of that, and it held me back from ever doing anything that put me. But now I've never felt stronger in my life. I've put on 30 pounds of muscle in the last 3 or 4 years, and I've never felt so good. But I spent decades hating myself and being underweight, and because my underlying tape was I'm weak and I'm skinny and I've never been healthy, and so that's not going to work out for me.
Yeah, you put those labels on yourself, and they do completely. And until you kind of remove those shackles, I guess you tend not to make any progress with it. Have you read the book, So Why Didn't I Do It? I can't remember what the author's called.
No, but I love the title. Tell me more about this book.
It's similar sort of why people have got all these ideas, but they don't go from point A to point B. And it's basically just him telling all different stories of his past. That book.
Oh, I love that. Please do. Have you heard of the books Psycho-Cybernetics?
Yes, yeah. I've got it. I read the first or the second chapter because what I do with books, I don't read it all at once. I kind of pick up a chapter, go read another bit of another book, and then read a chapter. Then I'm not bogged down and just read the whole book from start to finish. I've got to do it chapter by chapter.
Understandable. For anyone who's listening who's maybe not heard of the book and maybe doesn't have a copy like Leeroy does, it ties into these things that we're chatting about, where the big main principle of the book is the power of self-image, which would be another way to say identity, or the underlying tape we all have about ourselves. And the original author was a plastic surgeon who focused on changing people's appearance, the nose jobs, cheek adjustments, or whatever, change people's jawlines. And once in a while, most of the time, he would do the surgery and people would be so grateful and unbelievable, and they would change the way they walk, and it would change their confidence. They would have an easier time in relationships at work, and it was amazing. Once in a while, he would have someone come into his office and call him a fraud and say, "You didn't do anything. My nose is exactly the same. You didn't change anything," even though the surgery had happened and it had changed. And it blew his mind. So he started researching, and what he found was that those people, it didn't matter if he changed their nose or cheeks or jaw or anything, because their internal image, their self-image did not change. So therefore they were still stuck in that. And then that sent him off on this research and understanding of self-image, and how changing that is actually the biggest indicator of if someone feels more confident, is more successful, insert whatever other thing you want to achieve.
There was that experiment a few years back, and what they did is there was a load of women. I think it was only women anyway, but before a job interview, they'd done like all makeup, and they'd kind of doing this scar makeup. So then, just before they'd seen it in the mirror and so forth, and then just before they go into the interview, they'd like, "Oh, let's just change it up a little bit," and then scarring makeup. So they're going into the interview as themselves with no scarring tissue or anything there. And they all interview with all these preconceptions, like, oh, they were judging me, they were this, that, and the other, and it was just themselves going into it. It's incredible.
Wow, that's powerful. I believe that. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's incredible. But yeah, Rob, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that. It was, really did good to chat.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me. It's a great conversation, great banter, and I love the different variety of things we covered. And you are curious about things that are near and dear to my heart. So it was an easy conversation to have.
Oh, thank you. If anyone wants to get hold of you, because obviously it's going out on LinkedIn, but it's going out a few others, how can people get a hold of you?
LinkedIn is my main online hang. So if you're not seeing this on LinkedIn, check me out there. I moonlight a little bit on Instagram. I do post and share a little bit there. And if you just want to dive into my world, I put out a really awesome newsletter on a weekly basis and see all the other nonsense that I'm up to, growthhabit.org. Growthhabit.org is my website.
Cool. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Leeroy.